Welcome back to the program. My name's Kerry Stevenson, and I am delighted to introduce you today to Investigator Resources and its Managing Director, Andrew McIlwain. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kerry, and a pleasure to be speaking with you again.
Well, you've got a silver and gold focused exploration company. Your core asset is the Paris Silver Project in South Australia. Let's just talk about that. I mean, obviously the gold and the silver price, the silver price is really starting to ratchet up these days. So let's talk a little bit about the Paris project itself, what the assets are, and what the scale is and the location for our listeners today.
Sure. So let me start. The Paris project is Investigator's significant principal asset. 42 million ounces of silver, a JORC compliant resource. If you do the quick numbers, that's nearly $1.5 billion worth of silver metal in the ground. So,
sorry, Andrew, can you just repeat that again? 42 million ounces of silver in the ground, JORC resource.
Absolutely. So the JORC resource was revalidated in 2017. That was the third resource. Interestingly, and this is what we're really pushing forward for, is every time the resource has been recalculated, the grade's gone up by about 20%. 42 million ounces, $1.5 million worth of silver in the ground. 1.5 billion, I should say.
I was about to say 1.5 billion in the ground. And with the silver prices being as strong as they are, I guess for every slight increase in the silver price, this makes this project even better in terms of return on investment.
Huge leverage to the silver price. When I got involved in Investigator, the Paris project, a greenfields discovery by Investigator, was a little bit tired, but the silver price was also fairly depressed. I'd always said that when we saw the silver price getting back to $30 Australian, that we'd really start to have a project on our hands. It crept up on us and it shot past that, and today we saw a silver price of $35. This is a great project.
Well, it's one of the only silver projects of its size in Australia that has yet to be developed. I'm saying at the moment it's close to surface. What other attributes does it have over other silver projects that are currently on the market?
Oh, Kerry, it's a great project. Primary silver mineralisation, native silver and a thankite. Really amenable to metallurgical recovery. We've got a few challenges, but we've addressed most of those. But people don't really sort of have a feel for silver projects. This has got a indicated resource grade of 163 grams. I sort of wave my hands around and talk about the gold-silver ratio, but to try and put that in a vernacular people would understand, that's a 500,000 ounce gold resource at better than 2 grams. If it was within 500 kilometres of Kalgoorlie, it would have been mined by now.
Right. So what's stopping that happening now? I know that you've just raised $8 million via a two-tranche placement. What is that money intended for? What are you going to use that for? How did the raising go? And were you surprised by the amount of interest with Investigator?
Sure. So look, the raising was primarily focused on advancing the PFS study to completion. There's some elements of that have been done, but we need to do a little bit more infill drilling and complete a resource review. We'll do a conceptual mine plan that will feed in then to the PFS. Importantly, we hadn't been sitting on our hands. We'd been preparing a plan to do this PFS work whilst the silver price was down. And as I mentioned before this, we were getting ready for the silver price to move, but not prepared for it to leap forward as it has. Our major shareholder, Merian Gold and Silver Fund out of the UK, are absolute silver bulls. When I spoke to them about doing a raise, they said, well, we want to reposition ourselves in the company. They'll come back in after the tranche 2 placement's approved at about a 16% shareholder. They love silver. They love the exposure they get through Investigator. We used Canaccord as the lead manager out of Perth, and those guys did a fantastic job, and we were really overrun by interest. Some would say the pricing was too cheap, but today we're trading above the price that we were 5 days ago when we went into the trading hold.
Yeah, I think I think what people need to realise is that this is a project. I think you've flown a little bit under the radar in the past few years, and now that the silver price is starting to move, there must be a lot more interest. And does that allow you to, I guess, fast track a little bit the project?
Look, it does. And over the last couple of years, and by design, we've tried to sort of keep Paris on the back burner. We haven't been out pushing it and promoting it. But you only have to pick up any of the mastheads today and they all report bullish silver and gold prices. Everyone's talking about gold going to $2,000 an ounce. About 30 years ago, I went to the largest silver mine in Idaho in the US, and a guy gave me a 1 ounce silver ingot. And he said, "Hang on to that, young fella, that'll be worth something one day." It was worth $5 then, so look, it's taken a while, but the price has come around.
And it seems to me that the prices are going to continue to strengthen. We don't actually know, but it seems to me like silver is strengthening a lot. You've got some other project, but let's just continue to focus on Paris for a moment. What can shareholders? You've done the placement. What can shareholders expect for news flow in the near future, and then further down the track?
Sure. And you mentioned before that the Paris project is in South Australia. It's about a 6-hour drive from Adelaide, 5 hours on the Eyre highway heading west towards Perth, and then about an hour north off that highway, all weather accessible roads. One of the beauties is that we've used bullion drilling for the drilling of that project for the last 5 years. They're based in Mount Gambier. They're all in South Australia. There are no COVID restriction issues, and they'll be on the ground drilling by the start of September. So we've got very quick news flow. We've signed a contract with them over the weekend to get them mobilised, and we will start putting news about drilling into the market within 4 weeks. In parallel with that, we'll also be doing some of the technical work behind the scenes, and as we complete that, we'll also present that to the market.
All right, so let's talk about the drill. So the drilling will start in September. I guess from that you'll get lots of news flow. So the primary reason for the funds was to advance the drilling.
Absolutely. So about a $3 million drill program, but importantly, that also includes some regional targets that have never been tested. We had an area that is only a couple of kilometres north of the Paris deposit that had not been heritage cleared, and we hadn't pressed to do that. More recently, as I said, behind the scenes, we've been doing some work. We got that heritage clearance done, and we were able to get out and drill the Argos target, which is one of, we think, may well be Paris 2.0.
Okay, so this is a new target that has never been drilled before.
Not a hole in it, and always known about, but as I said, had some challenges. So as well as the infill drilling, 20,000 metres of drilling within the pit to improve the resource confidence, we'll also be doing some drilling outside in the regional areas as well.
Andrew, you speak about some of the challenges. Can you share with me, with our listeners, what those challenges were, how you've overcome them, and is there a clear path forward?
In respect to some of the COVID challenges, we were drilling at a Maslin's project at the start of March, and we concluded that program and only recently have been back out to, in fact, tidy up the camp and pack up. Importantly, Paris has no challenges in relation to community. It's remote from the community. There's no Indigenous communities. We have contact out there. And as I said, our heritage clearances have all been done, so we don't need to engage with Indigenous community on the ground, or the traditional owners on the ground. One of the challenges, and I suppose the guys in Adelaide think it's great because I'm based in Melbourne and they only hear me yelling over the phone. So, but it is an issue of mobilising a team by remote, but it's all challenges we're rising to at the moment.
Well, I think here we are doing a Zoom interview. I think that we can overcome all sorts of challenges and rise to the occasion, so to speak. But yes, you are currently in lockdown in Melbourne, which it's a challenge, but we can get over those sorts of things. So let's talk about the drilling is going to start in early September. It'll run for 4 months. You're going to do some of the regional drilling. Now, in the beginning, I did talk about the fact that you have some gold as well. Are you just purely focused right now on Paris? And because it's a huge project at 42 million ounces, is that the main focus of the company right now?
When I got involved, and Kerry, appreciate my background, I've been involved in M&A for a long time, and we have been looking for another project to bring into Investigator. More recently, we pegged some ground in Tasmania adjacent to the Henty gold mine and near the Rosebery base metal mine. ironically, we've not been able to set foot on that ground, and at some stage we will. But certainly our focus is very much the Paris Silver Project. There'll be great news flow. I probably skipped over some of the aspects of that project. Is that it's in relatively benign ground. Our relationship with the regulators and the landowners is probably second to none. We have an enviable track record, both environmentally and from a safety perspective. So getting on the ground, this project is 120 metres deep. It's a really simple open pit. There are no real impediments. There's no sort of drainage issues, community issues, if we want to push this forward to project development. So that's the prize for us at the moment. As I said, news flow will be coming on a regular basis.
Andrew, let's talk about the sort of the next bit of news flow. And, you know, we've talked about the money raising. We've talked about some of the challenges, the fact that you're in Melbourne, but you've got the team on the ground there. The drilling is going to start happening. Why should investors like myself start to really have a look at Investigator? I mean, you've talked about it's a large silver project. It's kind of flown under the radar for a little while now. What would you say to investors right now about timing wise, I guess, for investigators right now?
Well, look, a lot of people would say, gee, I wish I'd bought the shares next week. I'm sure some people are going to be saying exactly the same thing next week. If you look at the correction that's happening in the gold-silver ratio you mentioned before, the gold price certainly, and all the analysts suggest that the gold price is going to continue to move. The gold-silver ratio, about 6 weeks ago, hit a record high of 124. It's retracted now to about 80, but if you look back over the history, it's been as low as 40, an average of about 60. So that correction continues, then the silver price is going to start to move forward. But even at $35 an ounce, this is a great project.
So it's very economic at 35. Was your touch point, you said earlier your touch point was $30?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So any final comments for our listeners out there? I mean, it sounds really exciting. It sounds like timing is everything, isn't it, Andrew?
Well, if you look at our market cap of $30 to $40 million and compare that to, and my reference point is a 500,000 ounce gold deposit, there's a big value gap, and there's a big value gap between us and our nearest peer, whose market cap today is 120 or 30 million. So we've got a great project. It's the highest grade silver project in Australia, quite easily mined, and as I said, we're on a path to deliver news about how we're going to develop that.
Yeah, and I think, Andrew, just before we finish up, I think that is the key. This project, the Paris project, is quite easily mined. It's close to surface. There's no challenges in terms of its location. My only question is, and I know it's further down the road, what about, I guess, the processing and putting it through to production? Are there any challenges with that?
So a small part of the ore body has some challenging metallurgy, and we understand that. We've got we have a plan to address that. When I say challenging, it's a 65% recovery. Other parts of the ore body have 87% recovery. So there's a lot of work being done on metallurgy. We'll do some fine tuning. We have a few things we think that we can bring to the table that may improve that, and that's going to be part of watch this space. We've got some things happening.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is a project that has flown under the radar for a little while. The silver prices are getting stronger, and I think that this. Would you say this is one of the largest silver projects to be developed in Australia at the moment, Andrew?
Look, one of the primary silver projects. Obviously, the Cannington mine produces an enormous amount of silver as a byproduct, but as a primary silver project, it's one of the few that's undeveloped in Australia and set the highest grade.
Highest grade. That's what we love to hear as well. Grade is king. Andrew McIlwain, thank you so much for joining the program today. Awesome to see you, even if it's lockdown. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.